my parents were pretty intellectual and world-minded, and they raised me to be so independent that before I finished high school they couldn't take me, so they threw me out.
Oh, that's interesting.
Only partially. I succeeded in persuading them that they wouldn't see me anymore if I didn't come home and finish high school at home.
Mm-hmm.
So and my roots, of course, in suburban New York were not kind of roots that I would wish on anybody. Mm-hmm. All the neighbors were, half of them were divorced, and
Where in suburban New York?
it was in New Jersey, in Short Hills, New Jersey, outside of Newark, New Jersey. And half the families said it, didn't they? They were divorced, and the neighbors didn't even know each other. That was back in 1930 something. It's worse today, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And anyway, so I started without roots. I'm rootless.
Well, it's most American rootless anyway today.
Yes, it's true.
Mm-hmm.
Very true.
But 1930s, they had some good family background. They have a good root.
Well, I was going to tell a story. When I went to, my father took me to a Quaker meeting once. He wasn't a Quaker, but I was so impressed with the spirit of those people. I said to them, I'm an atheist, and they said, that doesn't matter, you're equally welcome. Mm-hmm. And that really turned me on. And then I went regularly to the Quaker meeting. It was an hour's drive from home, and it gave me a view of a different way of thinking. Mm-hmm. That really got me going, and I've never regretted what the Quakers have taught me. Especially when I got to know Quaker history. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so then I went down to Cape May, New Jersey one summer when they had a national Quaker conference, and fell in love with this delightful young woman from a farming community upstate New York. Mm-hmm. And I hitchhiked up there. I was working in a factory during the summer. I hitchhiked up there to Easton, New York, and stayed with them and went to the Quaker meeting and helped them bring in the hay. Mm-hmm. And for the first time in my life, I experienced what a farming community could be like. Mm-hmm. And it was almost totally opposite from anything I'd ever seen in my life, and that got me interested in rural life, and then I studied too at Antioch. Then I went to Antioch College, which is a rather far out college. Mm-hmm. Arthur Morgan was a man from the Midwest. He did quite a bit for Antioch, but the thing that he did for me and for many others was a community service organization, which was a program to try and encourage people to appreciate the value of small village farm life and cooperation on the farm life. And he had a very deep influence on my thinking. So now I had peace, nonviolence, and rural orientation, all very opposite from what I'd grown up with.
I see.
Being dyslexic, I didn't enjoy reading easily. And then when I went to Antioch, before I finished the year, I started studying engineering and decided that we had too many machines and too many bridges to drive the army across. We needed social engineering.
Right.
So I switched to sociology, and Then I decided sociology in college is ridiculous. I wanted to know from the real life, not some professor's theories. So I hit the road. And I've been learning sociology from life ever since. One of the first things I did, I went to the home mission office, which is a congregational church. They had programs for the migratory workers in Florida. And I said, where would you advise I go? And they sent me to Okeechobee in Florida. And I took my brother's pup tent and the Army surplus knapsack. That was the First World War then. And I hitchhiked down to Florida, and I put my pup tent up where some other people were camping. And there was a couple who were a circus couple, what do you call them, sideshow people, what do you call them? I don't know the name. But and the woman said she'd been divorced 5 times and the man had been divorced 3 times. They were people who, some people would call them outlaws. They lived in another society.
Right.
And well, their life was carnival. They went from carnival to carnival. Not many people understand what a carnival people are like, but that was partly. But they also said, if anybody, they told me their name and so on, and then they took a second thought and they said, if anybody asks for us, don't point us out. Tell us they're looking for us.
I see.
The little by little, I got understanding of the other worlds from the bourgeois middle class society I grew up in. And each lesson was so valuable in just little pieces of understanding how people really live. Most of the people in the world live. I only worked for in Florida. I worked on the string bean grading belt. They grew string beans there and shipped them to New York. And I would interview the people next to me. They didn't know I was interviewing them. I just said, well, how come you were here? And they would tell me their life history, and they were delighted to have somebody listening. So there I was, getting an education that couldn't compare with any textbook on social change. I'm amazed as I look back on what I learned during those 2 weeks in Florida working on the string bean grading belt, how it helped me understand the future, 50 years into the future.
Only the 2 weeks in the field.
That's all.
You learn 50 years the future.
Yes.
Oh, that's great.
And what it told me was the centralization of the control of American industry. This one man told me how he had lived in this Ohio company town, and every time the factory closed down to retool at winter time, they laid off the people who were not permanent in the town, and kept the permanent people, moved them to different departments. Then the factory was bought by a company in Chicago who didn't care a bit about the people working in it, and each winter when they were retooling, they laid him off. And he used up all his savings in 3 years feeding his family until he was desperate. Just be the centralization of control of the industry. And here he was down there working the most menial work you could ask for just to feed his family.
That's 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Today it's really happening that way. Many countries. Japan also same way. Japan is also used to be. Japan is like a permanent worker. The permanent worker is the factory never laid you off. But nowadays, factory laid you off easily because they don't need you.
Well, this is the value I feel of my Vagabond College. By seeing a situation and being able to project this into the larger society, one gets a view that you can't compare.